You need me? For some reason, if I don't X out every single thing on my computer, it gets very mad at me. Alrighty. Let's see. We got a good crew. Beautiful. So my name is Carrie McGinn. On behalf of Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare and Tufts Health Plan, I'm very happy to present to you today. I am going to share my screen in just a moment, and then we'll dive right in. From there, I'll save a little bit of time for questions at the end, so feel free to pop them in the chat. But let's go into it. Alrighty. And this part always takes a moment longer than I want it to. So bear with me. Alrighty, welcome, welcome. Like I said, my name is Carrie McGinn. For those of you just arriving, I am here on behalf of Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare and Tufts Health Plan. Today we're going to be diving into the art of letting go. So today we're going to talk about letting go and how it helps us find a path to move past obstacles and things that hold us back. We'll really dive into how to let go and move on and drop physical, emotional, mental baggage, really freeing up space to make positive shifts in your life. I'm going to share some reflection opportunities, some quotes, and some journal prompts, especially at the end. So if this is a process that you're really going through right now, I highly recommend having a piece of paper or a journal or even the notes app on your phone open, because there'll be great things to kind of reflect on. Also, feel free to take a screenshot of the journal prompts at the end. So I want everyone to pause for a second. Let's arrive in our bodies and take a nice deep breath in and a nice long breath out. I want you to think about, what does to let go mean to you? Before we dive in and I'll give you all the deets that I'm going to talk about, what does letting go mean to you? We all have preconceived notions of what that means. And if you feel comfortable and you want to share, feel free to pop it in the chat. We can review them afterwards. And also to move on. What does it mean to move on from something? A lot of us have these different notions of things being negative or positive, good or bad. And today we're going to talk about letting go and moving on, not as something good or bad, but something that is useful for ourselves. At the end of the day, we all go through challenges. Letting go, this kind of topic, it can bring up a lot of different things for people, and moving on as well. We can be letting go of romantic relationships, friendships, moving on from job losses or quitting a job, losing a loved one to death, losing a pet, moving cities, an injury, or an illness. There's all sorts of things and experiences that we can be letting go of and moving on from. So just kind of reflecting on, what is it that you might be needing to let go of here in your life, in your kind of day to day. It really depends on where you are and what you need. And some of this stuff is inherently a little bit more negative than positive, but there's still similar ways we can look at it. So really, why should you let go? So a couple things come up in the research. Holding on to the past can really keep us spinning our wheels, kind of staying in place. Not being able to move on from something can be a way to kind of freeze ourselves right here and right now. There can be a lot of overwhelming and conflicting emotions when we're not moving on, not letting go. There can be this inability to think to the future or to even plan for the future. And really, most importantly, the past is done. Whatever, I love and hate the quote, whatever is done is done. What's next? By letting go and moving on, you can create space for something new, something maybe bigger, better. And it doesn't necessarily mean that what you let go of was bad. It just means you're making space for more. Your past, the situations, experiences, relationships, jobs that you've had in the past do not define you. They are not your sole identity. You are yourself. You are much bigger than just one job or one relationship or one experience. And really letting go of something that's no longer serving you is the cornerstone of change, whether that's creating new healthy habits, whether that is just putting one foot forward, whether that's moving forward from a not so great situation. So it's really this aspect of change, leaving the past behind and creating a new future for yourself. And at the end of the day, you deserve to be happy no matter what has or has not happened to you. And I think more people need to realize that and need to know that. You deserve to be happy and you deserve to feel good. So, what are some things that are stopping you from letting go? This is another fun one. If you want to pop it in the chat, feel free to. What are some things that are stopping you from moving on from a tough situation or something that is no longer serving you? For some people, it can be self-limiting beliefs. Well, if I move on from this relationship, I'll never find love again. If I let go of this job opportunity, I'll never get a good opportunity again. Or self-limiting beliefs that I can't do this, I'm not strong enough, things that you tell yourself. So negative thinking. Guilt can also be a really big thing that stops us from letting go and moving on. And honestly, I think, in my opinion, one of the bigger things is this big unknown. It creates uncertainty. All right, I'm going to let go of this opportunity, but I don't know exactly what's coming next. For me, it happened once when I had to leave a job that was very toxic to my mental and physical health. It took me, I'm going to be completely honest, like 3 to 4 months to like really leave. I wanted to leave for 6 months, and I finally did it after about 3 or 4 months, got serious about it. And the whole thing holding me back was the uncertainty. What's going to come next? What am I going to do next? Why am I right to leave this? It can often be easier to stay put, even if you're miserable, even if you're unhappy, than to take a chance and to move forward. And I think that's really real and really hard at the same time. So I share what's stopping you slide, not to scare you or to say, look at all these things that you're not doing, but to show you that you're not alone if these things are stopping you from letting go or from moving on to something better or bigger or something different even. We all experience these situations, these emotions, these thought patterns. And sometimes just knowing you're not alone is helps you take that next step to the unknown, to the uncertainty. And thank you to everyone sharing in the chat. It's nice to hear what you guys have to say. I'll kind of take a look at them afterwards as well. So letting go can be of positive or negative things. I kind of already touched on that, but just diving a little bit deeper. There's this process of letting go and moving on from positive things. This can be grieving a lost loved one. This can be letting go of a dream you once had for your future and really having to accept and grieve that loss. It can be letting go of high expectations that don't serve you. It can be letting go of a friendship that was good while it lasted but is no longer serving you. And with this more kind of positive experience of letting go, it can be a little bit more difficult to get at that initial stage because there is a deep grieving process. I think about, I lost a close loved one. And while, yes, ruminating on her passing away and, what we could or could not have done to help her was no longer serving me, there I still needed to leave space for this grieving process. So sometimes when we're letting go of some more positive experiences, there is a deep grief process that needs to happen, and there needs to be space for that. There's also situations in our life where we're letting go of kind of more negative things. And that can be really sometimes feel like a huge relief. A burden can feel like it's lifted. And it can be this mix of grief and celebration, whether it be like a toxic relationship or a toxic habit. A friend of mine a couple of years ago was trying to quit smoking and cigarettes, and that was a really, not so great habit for his health. But it had become a ritual for him. It had become a way for him to really stress, whether it actually did or not. That's what he mentally thought. So he really had to grieve that, okay, I'm not using this anymore, but I'm also relieved because I've been wanting to stop this for so long. So let me celebrate that I'm letting go of this toxic habit, but I also need to grieve and make space for new habits that will kind of replace that. So letting go can be both letting go of good things or once good things or negative and toxic things. They're both valid kind of things to let go of and to work through. So this is a great quote that I really loved when I was going across my research. If you cannot do anything about it, then let it go. Don't be a prisoner to things you cannot change. Often when we're in a situation and we feel like we need to let go of something and move on, but we don't take that step to physically do that, it can feel like you're a prisoner. Maybe it's just a prisoner of your own mind, but it can still feel like you're a prisoner, whether that be in a relationship, whether that be in a job and experience, or even just in a habit that you have. Kind of going back to a friend of mine trying to quit smoking. He really did feel like a prisoner of that habit, like he was tied to it and had to do it. And that's something that he needs to move on from and let go of, because he can't change that smoking's bad for you, but he can change the habit and let go of the habit. So I want you to start thinking here, and if you have a journal or note app, you can maybe start jotting things down. Well, what do you feel like is holding you back from moving on? Let's just pick one situation in your life. What is preventing you from moving on in this one situation? What is preventing you from letting go? What's holding you back here? Just take a moment to kind of mull it over, think about it, see what it comes up. All right, so the art of letting go. Now let's get into the how. So first and foremost, you gotta hold space for yourself and grieve. Whether you're letting go of something positive or negative, you need to give yourself the space to grieve and to feel. So this can look like a couple of different things. Paying tribute to what you're letting go of, whether that's even just writing down thoughts and feelings in a journal. Like I said, we'll go through some really great journal prompts at the end today. It could be writing how this habit makes you feel and why you need to let go of it. It can be writing someone a letter and sharing what you valued about your relationship. And here's the thing, that letter doesn't need to be sent to them. It can be either burned or buried or thrown away, but sometimes writing out your thoughts as to why you're letting go of them or why you're moving on can be helpful. If it's appropriate, you might send it to them, but I don't think it's necessary to get the benefit of the tribute. Other things like creating a full photo album or a scrapbook can be really helpful. Something that's a keepsake that can remind you of good times, but not keep you ruminating on the past. And also in this process of letting go, remembering to cry when you need to. Feel your emotions, however mixed they might be. It's okay to grieve whatever you're letting go of, even if it feels silly. It's okay to feel sad, happy, angry, frustrated, joyful. I think this process of letting go and moving on is one of the more quote unquote confusing ways experiences, because there's positivity and there's negativity, there's joy and there's sadness, there's just a mix of emotions. Can you give yourself space to feel them all? And not feel them all 24/7, but just feel them all over the course of time. And then next, really focusing on what you need. This process, whatever it is you're going through or working through, is yours, not someone, I should say, not someone else's. There's there's this need to nurture yourself, to take steps forward that serve you. But I will say there's also a fine line between doing what you need, kind of maybe taking a little bit extra time to grieve, taking an afternoon to be by yourself, maybe even taking an afternoon to binge watch Netflix because you need to tune out. But there's this fine line between doing what you need and playing the victim. At a certain point when moving on from something, you need to move on. Playing the victim is not going to serve you, and we'll go through ways that you can like physically move on in a moment. And then next is really focus on what you're gaining. Oftentimes when we let go of something that is no longer serving us, we're gaining something even bigger and better. I think about it in terms of the job that I left. If I did not leave that job when I did, I would not be here in front of you giving this presentation. And to me, that is a blessing. I had to let go of a lot of things to create the career and the job and the business that I have right now. So I try, as hard as it was, as many mixed emotions it was, I tried to focus on what I was gaining. This ability to share my passion, a little bit of time, freedom. So can you focus on what you are gaining? And I will say this is easier in some situations than others, so take that with a grain of salt. So moving on. Before really fully letting go and moving on, there's some mindset shifts that can be really powerful to help you in this process. One thing that's really worked for me and I remind myself of often is this idea of viewing life as a journey. Whatever you're letting go of, whatever you're moving on from, this is not the end of your story. This is not where you end. This is just a piece of your story. Sometimes when we're moving on from something big, especially whether it be a relationship or a job or even moving a state, it can feel like the end of the journey. But it's just a pit stop along the way. When you view life as a journey and have these ebbs and flows, it can be a little bit easier to handle the tough emotions. Another good mindset shift is believing in yourself. Believe in why you did this, why you're letting go. Trust that you innately know yourself so well and you know what you need to do. Also, showing yourself compassion instead of self-judgment. Sometimes when we're letting go of things that no longer serve us, there can be this self-guilt and self-judgment comes up. Oh, I should be able to handle that. Oh, I should be able to make this work. Show yourself compassion and believe that you chose this for a reason. Add a level of mindfulness to it as well. Each day is going to feel a little bit different. So be mindful, bring awareness to the present moment and see how you feel and explore how you feel as a way to just work through the emotions and the experience moment by moment. And then rumination. Let rumination go if you're going to let anything go today. What ifs and if onlys are a very, very dangerous game. What if I did this instead? What if I did that? If only I did this, if only I did that. Instead of that, flip it to what now? What comes next? That is going to be more powerful than what if. And then last but not least, letting go of this mindset of what might have been. It goes similar to the what ifs, but we can kind of create this fantasy of what our life we thought it should look like. I remember as a kid, as a like an 11-year-old, I used to think like, oh, I'd be married with like 5 kids and a big house by the time I was 30. I'll give you a spoiler alert, that didn't happen. But it's this idea if I held on to that fantasy and beat myself up if I didn't get it, then that can have a lot of negative health effects, mental and physical. So maybe when you're working through something, you need to let go of what might have been, what you thought was going to happen to create space for this new reality. And often the new reality is better than you could have ever dreamed of. So some things to do. So that was kind of mindset shifts for moving on, get your mind right. So now let's talk about some tangible things you can do. First and foremost, silence your inner critic. You can be your own worst enemy. When you're going through a moving on and letting go process, maybe this looks like creating a positive mantra or reminding yourself why you're doing it. I am letting go because I am strong. I am letting go because I'm making room for something better. I am moving on for my own growth. Find a positive mantra that silences your inner critic that's telling you you're doing it all wrong. Number 2, we've talked about this a bit, feel the feelings. It is normal to be emotional through this whole process. The more you try to stuff your feelings down, the more they're going to burst out at inopportune times. Feel the feelings when you have the safety and comfort to do so. Talk about it. Once again, there's a fine line between talking about it like so much that you're ruminating on it and talking and working through it. Talking through it can help you work through it. Maybe it's with a friend or a trusted friend or family member or even a mental health professional. Talking about what you're going through can be a really powerful way to transmute emotions and to work through difficult situations. With that said, there's also a time for getting people's advice and for not getting people's advice. Sometimes you need to talk through things without receiving advice from other people. And when you have trusted friends or family members, you can say that out loud. I have one friend that we always say, "Hey, I'm looking to vent about something," and I ask her two things. Can you not give me advice and just listen? And let me know if you're able to receive this. And that's a way to work through something without getting unnecessary, unsolicited advice. Another kind of tip here is rely on your support system. Sometimes when we're going through this moving on and letting go process, it can be really challenging. It can feel really lonely, especially if we're making big shifts. Have cheerleaders, have coaches, have friends and families, whether it's, a therapist or a life coach or your mom or your sister or your best friend or a partner. Rely on other people to help you when you're feeling low. Another good one that I think is a fun one is practice self-care. This is hard work. Letting go is hard work. It requires a lot of self-reflection. A lot of emotion comes up. Show yourself some love. And self-care looks a little bit different for every person listening here. So start to make a list of what makes you feel good in your body and go from there. Reflect, but be realistic. Reflect on what brought you to this moment, but also be realistic that this process of letting go and moving on isn't going to happen overnight, because often what we're trying to let go of or move on from did not happen overnight either. Writing it out and kind of working through what brought you to this point and where you want to go next can be really powerful. And like I said, I will be sharing some journal prompts in a couple moments. Some other tips and tricks. Remember, this one might be the most important. Letting go and moving on is not a failure. Whether it be relationships, jobs, situations, homes, states, I can go on and on. All of these things are experiences on that journey we spoke about. Because you need to let go of a job or a relationship does not make you a friend failure or a career failure. It is an experience on your journey. You are not a failure. Another thing that might be equally as important is believe that you can move on. So there's research out there. It's in this book. I mean, among other things, but one of the books it comes from is this book, Mindset by Carol Dweck, and in it, she talks about the fixed versus growth mindset. A fixed mindset is where you believe that you are born with an innate set of personality traits and intelligence and tools, and you can't get any smarter or grow any stronger or be any different. A growth mindset is where you believe if you put in the hard work and the dedication and the studying, you can grow to be whatever you want to be. That can be applied here. If you just simply are sitting here believing, I can do this, I can let go of that thing, that person, that place, that experience, I can move on, you are going to have a much higher success rate of actually doing it and moving on than if you were like, nope, can't do it. Don't believe that I can change. I'm serious. Simply believing in yourself, having faith in yourself that you can move on helps so, so much. In the process of letting go, try to plan new things to try and do. Don't overwhelm yourself with a busy to-do list, but do put yourself out there. So say you're leaving a job. Can you put yourself out there and looking for new career opportunities? Say you're have to let go of a friendship. Can you put yourself out there in new communities and trying to create new friends? Obviously not right away, but try new things. See how it feels. Put yourself out there. And then this is more of like a physical one. If you feel like you've been in that kind of, I'm practicing self-care, I'm doing what I need, but I might be falling into that victim mode, walk out the door. I'm talking about your physical front door. It can be tempting to stay holed up in bed reflecting, and that's great to a point. But at the end of the day, sometimes you need to get your butt out of bed and you need to get moving. This could start as a simple walk around the block. It could be something bigger like going to see people or putting yourself out there and trying new things. But after a certain point, get yourself moving. Also remember, there will always be another job, relationship, house, opportunity, experience. Once again, journey, not destination. Let go of the attachment, but keep the lesson. I love this because a lot of times what we're letting go of did either serve us at one point or it did teach us something. So can you let go of the attachment or let go of the thing, but keep the lesson? So let's go back to that question I asked y'all at the beginning. Let's reflect. What is holding you back? You've had some time to think about it. Feel free to write it down. If you want to share it in the chat, feel free to. No pressure there whatsoever, but write it down. What is holding you back? And we got some more journal prompts coming on up for you. So feel free to take a little picture of the screen if you'd like, or to write some of these down. But a great way to reflect and to figure out what you need to let go of is taking stock. What's not finished in your life? Do you need to complete something you've never resolved? Do you need to make peace with a part of your past that is over and done? Do you need to promise yourself to commit to open yourself to new things? What does your life look like now? And what can it look like when you let go of this person, place, experience, or thing? I want you to take a second to kind of think about this. Feel free to write it down. I'm just going to keep this up for like another 30 seconds before we move on to the next slide. And I will save just a few moments for questions at the end. Alrighty. That was about 30 seconds. We're moving on to the next journal prompts. More journal prompts. These are things to dive in a little bit deeper. So if you're in this space where you feel a little stuck, you're like, I need to move on, I need to let go, I need to do something, but you're not sure what. These are great questions to ask yourself. What do you want to create in your life? Personally, professionally, emotionally, spiritually? What do you want your days to look like? What brings you great joy? What is no longer serving you? Are there any part of your days, weeks, or months that you dread? If so, what are they? Can you shift your perspective around them? Can you let go of these things? Along the same lines, are there any people or places that you dread or that give you a bad feeling? If so, what are they? Can you shift your perspective around these? Can you let go of these people, places, or things? Take a moment either to reflect on this now, write them out, or take a picture here. Once again, I'll keep this up for like another 15 to 20 seconds. But these journal prompts are a really tangible way to start the process of not only letting go of something, but learning if there is anything that is holding you back and that is no longer serving you. Alrighty, I'm gonna take myself off screen share here, see what you guys all shared in your chat, and open up the floor to questions for the last couple of moments. Thank you so much for sharing in the chat. There's some really great stuff here. You're never seeing something again. For me, letting go means not focus on it, to accept things. Really great examples of letting go. Yep. Of course. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them in. I see one right here. I just want to make sure I'm going through all of these. Yep. How do you stop negative thinking is one questions that I got here, and I want to address that. It's hard not to be hard on yourself. So a couple things I wanna throw back at you for if you feel like you're always negative thinking. Two things. First, is there anything that you feel like triggers your negative thought process? Because sometimes there are triggers, whether it be like a confrontation, a certain situation, things like that. For me, there are certain triggers that I've seen repeated. So when you go into a negative thought pattern, start to kind of take note of if there's any triggers of it. That's one thing to just start to reflect on, because you can start to see like, oh, when I am rushing and I have to do something really fast and I don't have time to think about it, I beat myself up. And that might be something you can prevent. And then other than that, I like to stop negative thinking with a couple of different things. One is breath work, as silly as that sounds, or something physical like that. Breathing and really focusing on my breath can kind of stop me in my tracks. Or doing like physical movement where I have to pay attention to my body, even simply like balancing on one leg. I know that sounds silly, but something where you have to be fully present in the moment can stop you, and then you can reframe. Another thing I'll also do with negative thinking is write out all my negative thoughts. I don't do this often because it is a little exhausting, but write out all the negative thoughts and on like one side of the page, and on the other side of the page, turn all those negative thoughts into a positive thing about you. And that's a way to reframe really nicely. I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions on that. Not knowing how to let go is a barrier for me. Yeah, and I think that's something that you have to kind of write through, like, what is it I need to let go of, and what would letting go of it mean to me? Beautiful. Lack of trust in my judgment. And that goes back to kind of believing in yourself for sure. Bad memories. And it might be writing a letter to those bad memories sometimes. You know, writing a letter and saying, I let go, I let you go. But that can be really hard, bad memories. Yes, this session will be available to watch again. You'll get it from your employer group. I have like 1 more minute for any questions if anyone has anything. Thank you so much for being here, for sharing with the group, for being a part of this, and for putting yourself out there. Of course. Oh, sorry, I just saw one question in the Q&A. Sorry, I thought it was in the chat box. What about when your negative thoughts are running through your head too quickly to write down and it gets overwhelming? I think doing something body-based and something breath-based can be really helpful. I also think talking to someone like a mental health professional can be really helpful as well. So when it gets really overwhelming, you got to get yourself out of your head and into your physical body, and that looks different for everyone. Walking, running, yoga, weightlifting, something like that. I hope that helps. Alrighty. Yes, and the recording will be posted in the Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare YouTube page. Apologies, on the YouTube page. All right. Happy Wednesday. Have a great day.